Hi, so in today's video, I will be talking about this one question that I am sure you might have encountered or might have thought about at maybe either in the early stage in the relationship, or maybe you are someone who is now in that stage and is pondering upon why does someone suddenly pull away when everything was going great? Right, I'm sure you might have encountered that question, and I'm sure it might have led you to have like a series of questions following that following this question with regards to what did I do wrong, did I do something wrong that triggered them, did I say something that hurt their feelings, or does this mean it's over between us, etc. Right, so here today we'll be looking at a few reasons as to why does that happen. Sometimes the person genuinely likes you, right? And they like the fact that the energy that you're bringing, the way in which you're showing up in a connection, and that things are going great with you and the other person, right? But maybe there comes a stage in the dynamic or in the connection wherein maybe either you end up asking them a question, or end up asking them or sharing something that's vulnerable, or they end up doing that. And sometimes that ends up making them feel as to they became vulnerable, right? Maybe too quickly, and that part makes them feel uncomfortable when they think about it, right? Sometimes intimacy can, or like that fear of being vulnerable can make people feel uncomfortable. Now there can be n number of reasons as to why that happens, right? They might have had past betrayals, or that they fear abandonment, or that they fear that if they end up becoming vulnerable with someone, that means that they could take advantage of them, or that that means that they would end up leaving them, because that has been a pattern with every person in their life, right? So the reasons can be n number of reasons why that can happen. And sometimes this also leads for a lot of people to end up then coming to a conclusion that the other person is probably an avoidant, and that they are the anxious person, right? So instead of going on these and believing these internet labels, sometimes it's really crucial for us to look at the whole picture as to how they show up in consistently in the relationship or the dynamic, right? Instead of just holding on to that one aspect, right? So that this is what I mean by them being one, like fear, being fearful, or being fear of having that fear of intimacy, which makes them feel uncomfortable, and which leads them as a result to push you away. Now, another possibility can be that they do like you, but the pace in which the relationship is going can be frightening, or maybe concerning, or alarming for a lot of us. Imagine you're talking to someone new. Maybe things went great between you. The date was amazing. You all are texting and talking every day, right? And you all are sharing secrets, you all are sharing memes, you all have connected on every social media and showing up for each other during important events as well, right? So one person then ends up thinking here, maybe you end up thinking that wow, this is going so great, and that things are really going in the flow that I had intended, or that we had intended to, right? Or that things are going great. I'm happy with the flow of the connection, and the pace in which the connection is going. Now for the other person it can more with regard for the other person it can be, oh, it's going a bit too fast for me, the pace. I didn't realize that it would we would end up becoming this close this soon, right? So notice the difference here. One is experiencing excitement, the other is a bit skeptical, and the other is a bit concerned about the pace of the relationship. Sometimes they can feel that expectations are building up in the connection much more quicker than they had intended to, right? Like from the example that I gave below, maybe they then assume that the other person will end up thinking that now you want to give now they'll pressure me into putting a label, or that into commitment, when I don't want it, because I don't have the emotional bandwidth, or maybe because I have, like, I'm swamped up with work and I have other responsibilities in my life, so I can't show up in the connection this quickly, and this was not supposed to happen, right? So that is the reason sometimes, and they can end up pushing you away even though they do like you. So when a relationship starts its foundation with unsurety, with ambiguity, or with that gray area with of of starting the relationship in, I don't know where this is going, but let's see where it will go, or let's go with the flow, or let's see how things work out between us in the future. Let's not label it, let's not be too quick to label it right now. So these sentences or these type of dynamics are obviously bound to make both the parties in the end confused, because there can be a chance that both the parties will end up becoming close, will be there for one another, will be a part of another each other's emotional world, maybe physical world as well. Maybe they'll end up sharing space or talking every day and showing up for one another without the label, right? So sometimes that can happen wherein both the parties involved can become close too soon, right? But one person in the connection can realize or come to an understanding that this is not what they signed up for. Right now this can look like two people coming in a connection or in a dynamic, saying that they just want to keep things casual, right? Friends with benefits, or just hooking up, or just a situationship, or just a casual relationship that both the parties have agreed to. But later on, as time progresses, as the months go by, as they spend more time and energy as they spend more time with one another and they get intimate, one person does end up realizing that they are falling for the other person, right? Because you, if you do end up spending significant amount of your time and your energy being emotionally invested in someone, then attachment is likely to grow. This is not saying that this happens in all connections, right? It's very important to understand that if both the parties are always being transparent and talking about it and communicating this actively, this is not bound to happen. I'm talking solely about relationships, I mean connections, wherein there has been little or no communication as to where each both the parties stand in one another's life, right? If the active communication is missing, then misunderstandings are bound to happen. Then one person may end up continuing and showing up in the connection thinking that yes, they said that it's casual, but see, he or she is asking me questions that only a boyfriend or girlfriend would ask, and that see, we are becoming intimate like how any couple would do. We are going out for movies, going out for dates or date nights, going out for picnic treks, etc. That means that now maybe we are girlfriend boyfriend, or that we are dating or in the relationship, just that the label is missing, but that's fine. But for the other person it can just be that okay, maybe I am just hanging out with the person, right? So that is the distinction that I'm trying to make here, that sometimes there can be a confusion as to from in both the people involved as to where the relationship is going. And that does end up happening when the other person does end up pulling away or taking some time off, then the other person on the receiving end can feel that why are they acting this way, right? They shouldn't have done this, or why are they acting this way, how can they suddenly disappear? They should at least give me some explanation, or that if they are not replying or showing up for you, for showing up in the connection, or like messaging or not communicating for a few days, and the other person can feel very like not betrayed but upset with regards to why you're not showing up, or why are you pushing me away, right? But for the other person it can just be natural for them to say that this is not the agreement that we agreed for, right? We just agreed to keep things casual. Then why are you expecting commitment sort of responsibility or action or behavior from me? Sometimes both the parties involved do like one another, they are in a relationship, and that they everything is going good, right? On the good days everything is great, right? But then comes the time wherein there are misunderstandings, or there are issues or topics that have to be addressed in the relationship, within the relationship, that is annoying one partner, right? And that time is when the real dynamic can come into the picture, right? That is when the other person will end up realizing that the other person is not ready to have a conversation about it. They might end up just pushing the topic under the rug, or that one person wants to talk about like have a conversation as to why this topic or this thing is affecting them so emotionally, while the other person would just think that it is not that important to be discussed, right? So you are saying that there is a fight then between both the parties. There's a push pull that's happening, wherein one person wants to actively talk about it, make it a point that their point needs to be heard. The other person is like, it's not needed and it's fine, right? So if this keeps continuing or going on for a long time, then then the result can be both parties going growing frustrated, or that feeling exhausted also, right? Because if this pattern keeps repeating, then neither parties are being heard, and neither party is feeling emotionally safe within the relationship as well. Yeah, other instances of this can be with regards to the way they show up during conflicts, or the way in which anger is expressed also in the relationship or connection, or love languages as well, right? So sometimes there can be a clash of ideas that can happen, and if those are not addressed within the relationship, then there can be a tension that keeps growing slowly but slowly, and sometimes that is the only thing that's needed for another person to snap or push the other person away. Or maybe sometimes the other person constantly wants reassurance from their partner, which they might not always be end up which they might not always have the emotional bandwidth to give, right? Or maybe the partner is always stubborn with regards to saying sorry or not saying sorry, or stubborn in the way that they want to show up in a connection or want their partner to act or behave, but that is not how another person or partner might always act. So sometimes that's the reason the other person may end up pushing away their partner, or may end up pushing away the person that they like, because it's not that they don't like the person, but it's just that they might not be able to function or show up in the way that the other person might want them all the time. People end up changing, right? We are ever evolving beings, and things that excited us 2 years ago or 5 years ago might not be exciting, or might not be making us emotionally happy or fulfilled now in the present moment, right? Because maybe our priorities have changed, maybe we have evolved, or maybe we have grown emotionally or mentally, spiritually, etc., right? So that's the reason sometimes people do like the person, or maybe they might have liked the person in the past, but due to xyz reasons, which is obviously very subjective from person to person, they would find themselves not liking the person anymore. Maybe their preferences have changed with regards to how they want to spend their future with, or maybe they do not see themselves living the life that the other person wants them to, or maybe they have other goals that they want to achieve in life, right? Or maybe they plan on moving in another country, or pursuing another course, which might might mean which might mean that they'll have to shift physically as well. And sometimes long distance is not an answer for a lot of people, right? So there can be a lot of things into play when a person decides, or when this type of thing ends up happening, right? So sometimes that can be one of the reasons as to why another person or the person ends up pushing them away, because they might not they might have liked them at one stage of their lives, but now in the present moment they might be understanding, or coming to a realization that maybe they do not like the person anymore. Someone's initial level of interest isn't a promise as to this is how they will always be with the person forever, right? Or this is how they will always forever end up showing up. Because in the beginning, things are always great, right? Things are in the honeymoon phase, as such, what the internet calls, and things are all novel and new. But as sometimes when people settle in and time goes by, you end up seeing the reality, or you end up seeing aspects of the other person that you end up realizing that you do not like, or you realize that the personalities don't fit well, or priorities change, or initial excitement has also faded away, right? So as sad and upsetting as this part can be, I believe that this can be particularly painful reality to accept, obviously, because here the person has realized that they do not like you anymore, right? So sometimes the most kind thing that we can do is really accept the reality that they do not like us or cannot meet us where we would like to be met. And right, and instead of convincing them or either ourselves that maybe they are terrified of losing us, that's the reason they are pushing us away, or that maybe I can convince them to like me, right? Because you're then you'll be not only wasting your draining your energy, emotional energy, but also wasting a significant amount of your time which you could have poured within yourself. Understanding one of these reasons will not mean that this is the reason why they ended up pushing you away, right? Because your relationship is very subjective, and it's very subjective to you, and it's you who have lived into the connection, and you know best, and you know how the person ends up reacting, right? So that's the reason it's very important to understand the entire dynamic that's into the play, rather than looking at small fragments, right? So a few helpful questions that you can ask, rather than speculating that are these the only reasons that will help you. Do they communicate with you when something changes? Do they make an active effort to show up in your life? Do they tell you what they want? When they need space, can they actually communicate that? When there's a misunderstanding, can you repair it together? And do their actions generally match their words? The most important one would be, is what they are consistently offering you enough for what you want? Last takeaway from this video would be mindful and be understanding as to how the person is showing up in the connection, like the entire part of them, the whole of them, right? Because the whole is always greater than the sum of their parts that they'll end up showing.